live in a land paid for by blood, a country that was built up from sticks and mud. Our ancestors crossed 1,000 miles over the ocean, leaving behind a past that was negative emotion. When they first sighted land, they all jumped overboard and swam. They couldn't believe they were living in freedom. The government they once had didn't need them. It was tough during the first days, figuring this strange land. Many grouped together and started a plan. They knew they needed something to keep them in line. This is when they wrote the Constitution, man, it was divine. A bunch of men agreeing never lost their mind. They gave us all our freedom, one amendment at a time. And when they finished writing, 39 men had to sign. We have freedom, you can't take away. The Constitution guarantees that. So take your false authority and go the fuck away. The next 200 years came with a price. A bunch of men and women gave the ultimate sacrifice. They did it for the people alive today. You don't hear very many taking 3 times to say thank you, whoever you are, who gave your life, and for their families left on earth alone for their life. Thank you for your gift, the life that you gave. It lets us live as free men. Oh, glory we will wave. Now we are here in 2025, a year led by selfishness. It's no surprise the government is taking over. It's a friggin' mess. Our kids are being taken by people who must be diseased. Who the hell gave them that power? These actions need to cease. So listen up, you voted officials, we are here to say you need to pay attention to issues, because we aren't going away. We come bearing the Constitution, we'll recite it if we may. We the people is how it begins. The words that follow, you can fill them in, because they aren't true as they were meant to be. You're taking our freedoms one at a time. No one's paying attention except for us reciting these lines. You don't get to take away the rights we were given. Taking away our children should get you in prison. I'm not messing around, it's no laughing matter. Give our children freedom, or feel your teeth shatter. We are the ones who make the decisions. You lost track of your job, we're here to petition. This is your final chance. America doesn't need to fight a civil war. We just need you politicians to hit the door. So do the right thing and leave this city of Washington, or turn things around, give us something to fall again.
Hello, Vincent.
Hello, Mr. Darren.
Welcome to
Hello,
Wednesday
everybody
night.
else.
Hello, everybody. CPS Victims Fighting Justice here live Wednesday night. We got the chats right here. I don't know where the hell is Herbert.
He's in the chat.
He's in the chat. He's not in the show.
You think you need the link, Darren?
Yeah. So Brenda's show is going to be on tomorrow morning. She's going to do Thursday morning tomorrow. So everybody, make sure that you pay attention to that. What time, Brenda? I think 9:30 is the Eastern time that Brenda's.
Yeah, she said it in the chat. 9:30 to 10:30, I think.
Okay. If you guys haven't seen Brenda's show yet, make sure that you check it out because it's pretty
Hello, Mr. Herbert. Why aren't you on the show?
it's pretty good stuff. Yeah, where is everybody? Where's Danielle? So yeah, guys, make sure that you check out Danielle's show too. She's been sick lately, so she just got out of the hospital. So that's why she hasn't been around. But yeah, Benny, it was a pretty hot day for you, huh? You learned a lot today?
I learned quite a lot today.
What did you find out today at your bar meeting, that bar meeting that you were intertwined with?
I found out that the bar associate has known the entire time that what's been going on throughout the United States. That they've definitely known that our rights have been violated. They definitely have known that these children are being taken and that we are being CPR'd really, really quickly. This is a problem, people, because if they have known for this for that long and they did nothing, what says that they're going to take the action that they say they're going to take to fight back and take back what belongs to us? I do not trust that ability of the bar. I'm sorry, but I would not leave that into their hands. They say one thing and do another. And the fact that they have known all this time and done nothing speaks volume to us people.
Well, I mean, if they've known all this time, then those lawyers that they've been giving us, that means that everybody in the bar is known too.
Yep.
So, let's take a look here what the American Bar Association says about this. Let's see if they have anything to say in their website today about termination of parental rights. Let's see here. Herbert, where are you? Why are you not at work?
Yeah, Herbert. We're all here.
Herbert's getting a little lackadaisical here. He's been with me since the beginning of all this. You know what? Did you watch the TIFF show earlier?
I was in there. I was commenting left and right.
I saw. What'd you think of that story?
That's a long time.
13 years those people have been fighting this stuff for.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
But they still have not been CPR'd, which is curious to me.
Right. Now, yeah, that was great, and they have a lot of information for a lot of people. I'll get that information up here in a minute. Let's see here. Let's see if this says anything.
Obviously, they're doing something right, and they're fighting something right to not be CPR'd. So they must be like on the cusp of finding what they need to be doing.
Well, I mean, I know that they hang around with Tanawa. They hang around with Tanawa Downing, which is doing some great things.
Yeah, he's definitely making some moves. I've been watching his podcast, and yeah, he's definitely making some moves.
Yeah, I got to get him back on the show. Let's see here. ADA, non-defense determination of parental rights. That's 2013. Oh, here we go. There's an interesting one, Vinny. Wait a minute. Oh, no. Oh, come on, guys. This is why I say let's do our research, please, guys. And anyway, till I show you this. This is why I talk all the time, and I pride us on going out without making sure our information's right. And I also tell everybody to make sure that you share our information. Check it yourselves, right?
Yep, fact check it. Yep.
Now, this was as easy as this, and this is really going to scuttle a ship. But, and I know it came out on our program, but look at this, Vinny. Supreme Court ruling, Vinny. The trial court did not violate the father's due process right by denying his demand for a jury trial and a termination of parental rights proceeding. Neither the U.S. Constitution nor the Nevada Constitution guarantees a right to a jury trial in such proceedings. Furthermore, substantial evidence supported the trial court's findings that termination of father's parental rights was in the child's best interest.
Mm-mm-mm.
You understand what that means, Vinny?
Yep.
What does that mean, Vinny?
That means all of us fathers are fucked.
That means that everybody, this whole argument about the jury trial is down the tubes.
Yep.
The trial court denied the father's demand for jury trial, concluding that the right to a jury trial and a parental termination proceeding is not guaranteed by common law, statute, or the Nevada Constitution. Following a bench trial, the trial court terminated the father's parental rights. On appeal, the father argued the trial court erred in denying his demand for a jury trial, concluding it was the minor children's best interest to terminate his parental rights, including the parental fault, and it had been established. While the U.S. Supreme Court has held the due process rights of parents in termination proceedings, it is not it has not addressed whether due process requires a jury trial. Because parents have a vital interest in preventing the dissolution of their family, due process requires state to provide parents with fundamentally fair procedures in parental termination proceedings. U.S. Supreme Court applied the balancing test outlined in Matthew with Eldridge, which weighs the private interests affected by the proceedings, the risk of error, inherent state procedure, and the countervailing government interest. Because the father did not risk a loss of personal liberty in the termination proceeding, the court applied the Eldridge test to balance his interests in the companionship, care, and custody of his 3 children against the state's interest in the welfare of the children, conservation of judicial resources, and the need for an accurate and fair outcome. And concluded that the trial court's decision to hold a bench trial as opposed to a jury trial posed only a minimal risk of an erroneous decision. A jury is not required component of accurate fact-finding. The judge demonstrated familiarity with the rules of evidence and civil procedure, as well as the legal standard of a termination action. And the court applied the clear and convincing standard of proof. The father was given notice of the proceeding, was provided competent counsel, and had the opportunity to confront and cross-examine the witnesses against him. He also retained the right to appeal from an adverse decision. Furthermore, the court found that the Nevada Constitution similarly did not guarantee a right to a jury trial in termination proceedings. No termination of parental rights proceedings existed at the time of adoption of the state constitution in 1864, and since creation of termination actions in 75, the legislature has not conferred the right to a jury trial in such proceedings despite the opportunity to do so.
So I guess we need to investigate if that's in the statutes of Maine or not.
Most states specifically prohibit a jury trial in termination of parental right hearings.
That's huge.
Oh, I mean, it's not huge. It's just a gust out of the sails. That's why I tell everybody, man, do your research before you start. Listen, these parents out here, man, will grab on to a whim of anything that they think gives them the chance to get their children back. And it's not fair to provide people with information that gives them that hope and then strips it away from them.
Mm-hmm.
And I only saw this because I just went looking at the American Bar Association site for something that you just told me about.
Yeah. Usually, if it's put out by the bar, usually it's correct, Herbert.
Oh yeah, that's, as everyone says, that's case law right there. That's the ruling and the findings.
Yeah, but Brenda, we're saying that as a father, he doesn't have that authority in the
Right,
courts.
and the Supreme Court applied the balancing test outlined in Matthew versus Eldridge, which weighs the private interest affected by the proceeding, the risk of error, inherent state's procedure, countervailing government interests. Because the father did not risk a loss of personal liberty in the termination proceeding, the court applied the Eldridge test to balance his interests in the companionship, care, custody of his 3 children against the state's interest in the welfare of the children, conservation of judicial resources, and the need for an accurate and fair outcome.
But they're trying to change that. So you know, where do we lie then? That's what we need to ask them when they convene again tomorrow. Where do the fathers stand in that aspect? If you guys are in fact trying to change the CPR, does that count the fathers in there as well?
But the bigger part is, Vinny, the big argument that has been posing by some people on our channel is what?
That they're allowed to jury trial, they're not.
Right.
Now, on the flip side, in a criminal case, you are allowed.
That's right. I mean, right. But this just makes it a bigger fight. It did say that the Supreme Court didn't rule specifically on that, on the due process part, but it also does say that they ruled around it.
You would have to find a specific thing where they have fully deprived you of the due process. So you would have to have everything backing that due process to prove otherwise. And full-on witnesses, which, in layman's terms, I've been looking into witnesses, and if it's based on hearsay, you cannot call that witness. If it's based on fact, that's a different story. They have to have witnessed the act. The same with CPS workers. They can't call them as witnesses. You know why? Because they never witnessed it.
Yeah.
You're going to sit there and tell me you were sitting in my house the entire time, 24/7, 7 days a week?
Here we go, Benny. This is what you're talking about today.
365 days a year? I mean, come on.
I think this is the meeting that prefaced the one that you were at today. If I can get it to open here.
Yeah, I just sat there and watched it. I didn't comment. I just sat there and watched.
Yeah, I want to go to. Are they reconvening tomorrow?
They are. Yep. That's why you need to be on tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe even do a live. All right. So this says in TPR gatherings, this series of virtual gatherings aims to deepen the understanding and challenge that regular use of termination of parental rights as a legal permanency outcome in child welfare proceedings. Virtual gatherings would provide dedicated space for attendees to learn, connect, and support each other in their efforts to challenge their legal practice of TPR. Expert presenters will delve into the data and turn the legal implications of TPR while sharing insights from both legal. Why we should end TPR. Is that what it was? Oh, yeah, Wednesday, January 8th, right there, 1 p.m.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, here's a small workshop style space will be hosted by the panelists Monday, January 13th. So they are reconvening tomorrow or not till the 13th?
Probably not till the 13th, if that's what it says. I thought it was going to be tomorrow from the way Tiff was talking. But if it says 13th on there, that's when it is.
I don't know. Do you trust the bar? I'm just kidding. Man, okay, you can't register for that webinar. All right. Wow, well, that really kind of just took me by the side right there. The jury, but this is why I'm very cautious, Benny.
Yeah.
I don't talk about things a lot. I don't jump out on this stuff because I don't want to give anybody a false hope.
Yep.
Man, where's Gunner? We should get Gunner on here.
Let me try to see if I can reach out to him.
So I think he should definitely know about this. Man.
All
That's
right,
really something.
I just texted him.
All right.
Oh,
Hopefully.
he just read it, so
All right.
he said okay.
Alexandria.Cine.
Yeah, she said you had to email them to get in.
At American Bar.
Yeah, that's put out by the bar, Herbert.
.org. Vinny, you know I'm the American Bar member?
Yeah, you said you were.
Mm-hmm. My ABA.
I actually was doing some investigating on myself. I found a paralegal class. They're offering 12 sessions for free.
Look at that. Here I am.
Yep, there you are.
There's my credentials, everybody. I'm part of the J.D. Appellate Judge Conference, the Administrative Law Group, Public Contract Law, State and Local Government Law, Litigation, and Family Law memberships. There's my membership number right there, 06117562. That's me, man.
Yeah, I'm looking into that kind of stuff myself, Darren, to be honest.
Yeah, you should get in there.
There he is.
Gunner.
Bring him out here with us. Gunner.
Yeah.
Gunner.
You got to hear this, Gunner.
I was summoned. Go ahead.
Gunner. Hold on a minute. Let me pull it up. Houston, we have a problem.
A major one.
Let me go back to finding it here. Let me go back. We were discussing the meeting that Benny and them went to today about the ending of the termination of parental rights. And I started looking it up, and then I come across this right here, Gunner.
Wait till you hear this. It's going to blow your mind.
Where is it? It's the next page before. Father lacked right to jury trial and termination of parental rights proceedings.
Mm-hmm. I'll
just read it. This stuff here. The trial court denied the father's demand for a jury trial, concluding that the right to a jury trial in a parental termination proceedings is not guaranteed by common law, statute, or the Nevada Constitution. Following a bench trial, the court terminated the father's parental rights. On the appeal, the father argued that the trial court erred in denying his demand for a jury trial, concluding it was in the minor child's best interest to terminate his parental rights and concluding that parental fault had been established. While the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld the due process rights of parental terminations and proceedings, hasn't addressed whether due process requires jury because parents have a vital interest in preventing the dissolution of their family. Due process requires states to provide parents with fundamentally fair procedures in parental terminations. To evaluate whether a proceeding violates a parent's due process, the U.S. Supreme Court applied the balancing test outlined in Matthew Eldridge, which weighs the private interest affected by the proceeding, the risk of error and inherent in the state's procedure, and the countervailing government interest because the father did not risk the loss of personal liberty in the termination proceeding. The court applied the Eldridge test to the balance in his interest in companionship, care, and custody of his 3 children against the state's interest in the welfare of the children, conservation of judicial resources, and the need for an accurate and fair outcome. Hold on. Because both parties had compelling interests, the court's analysis focused on the risk that the procedures would have resulted in erroneous decisions. It concluded that the trial court's decision to hold a bench trial as opposed to a jury trial posed only a minimal risk of an erroneous decision. A jury is not a required component of accurate fact-finding. The judge demonstrated familiarity with the rules of evidence and civil procedure as well as the legal standards of a termination action, and the court applied the clear and convincing standard of proof. The father was given notice of the proceeding, was provided competent counsel, and had the opportunity to confront and cross-examine the witnesses against him. He also retained the right to appeal from an adverse decision. Furthermore, the court found that Nevada Constitution similarly did not guarantee a right to a jury trial in termination proceedings. No termination of parental rights proceedings existed at the time of adoption of the state constitution in 1864. Since the creation of termination actions in 1965, the legislature has not conferred the right to a jury trial in such proceedings, despite the opportunity to do so. The court found support from other jurisdictions for this conclusion, noting most states specifically prohibit a jury trial in a termination of parental rights proceedings. Finally, the Supreme Court found substantial evidence supported the findings that termination of parental rights was in the child's best interest based on statutory presumptions. For a child who has lived outside of the home for 14 and in consecutive 20 months, and father's failure to rebut the presumption because he could not show there was a reasonable possibility that he could provide for the minor child's basic needs in a reasonable time frame. Furthermore, substantial evidence supported the trial court's findings on 5 separate grounds of parental fault, and the court listed its reasonings with adequate specificity.
What year was that case law established?
That's 2016, my man.
Okay, so
It says neither the U.S. Constitution nor the Nevada Constitution guarantees a right to a jury trial in such proceedings. Furthermore, substantial evidence supported the trial court's findings.
okay, well, then you have to bring in the SEC versus Jarsky, which is in the current ruling. That basically says that if any judge has the ability to impose civil penalties to you, it does require a trial by jury. Matter of fact, if you look at that particular case, it's a Seventh Amendment dissertation on why it's a due process of what is there. So it's not a matter of they have this or that. What they were finding that you don't. The idea is it's attacking the court system itself of saying, in SEC versus Jarsky, saying if the judge has the ability, not that they exercise it, but to invoke civil penalties on you, then what that means is they are required then by that particular case law to have a trial by jury. And it's a more recent ruling, yes, but it's truly effective in more defined of saying, you know, father's rights versus this and that versus SEC's versus basically saying, listen, your system or your judicial system is basically saying is if that presiding judge or magistrate has the ability to invoke those civil penalties, then absolutely you get a trial by jury. So this is something that they may throw up with what we're looking at taking this, but once again, it comes down to the dissertation that's in there is for SEC versus Jarsky of why it's a Seventh Amendment violation is huge. And if you go through the details of it, and it's a more detailed ruling, understand this is also a ruling after Chevron. So one of the things we have to look at too is cases that were done between the Chevron period. We now have to reweigh those based off of the the Chevron doctrine being in place. That's the question, even going into the court, is having the court consider any cases between here and here, Your Honor. We got to look at them and revisit them, because that could have been passed under the Chevron doctrine that was basically considered unconstitutional. The ruling, these specialists. So yeah, we've got a whole lot of mess. This is possibly one of those things that, once again, SEC Jarsky has not been applied to this when it comes to it, and it may overturn a case like that. Huge. This is a great example of some of the things that they say, hey, we're specialists, or you don't have this right, or the court has this ability to do this and that, to do those things. But once again, does that judge have that power? Is what SEC charges. And that's an argument back and forth to have. That's why we have our court systems, is to answer these questions. Your Honor, which way is it? If they do have the ability to do civil penalties, or quote that case law, hey, you don't have the right to trial by jury because of all this. Yeah, but Your Honor, that's a father lacks the right to trial by jury, is what it was saying. But SEC versus Jarsky says, well, if the judge has these powers, then to limit his powers, you must have a trial by jury. Why? Because it takes it out of the administrative hands and into where it's supposed to be for we the people. So yeah, I mean, it's a great example of that case law of things that you may encounter, but this is why you would quote the Chevron doctrine, Your Honor. We now have to reweigh any case law that goes between those dates of the past 40 years that we have. Is it even constitutional? That's what I'm trying to say, is that's how bad this Chevron case has affected the American people. Stuff like this, yeah, he doesn't have rights, he doesn't have this. Okay, now let's apply SEC versus Jarsky that goes and defines the Seventh Amendment of due process, and it's a simple question, do you have the power to invoke civil penalties, yes or no? And the judge will have to answer that, yes. If the answer is yes, then the absolute answer is then, yes, you require a trial by jury. And that's the more recent case law. And that was done after Chevron dropped, because they couldn't quote Chevron anymore. Well, we're a specialist. Don't care. So yeah, great example of cases that came up of going, that don't sound right, that don't. Well, we all know those judges have those powers, and magistrates, to invoke civil penalties, find you in contempt of court, cost you money, induce fines, jail time for contempt of court. Those are all civil penalties, or even taking your children is a civil penalty, or your property. Those are all civil penalties. If it wasn't a civil penalty and children are not, then why is there a profit or a number match with them that they get from Social Security if they're not property? Because that's basically what it's saying. When you sign over your kids, you're signing over the property of your kids to the state as property.
Well, see, and that's where I come in and I say, well, according to the bar associate, and according to others that we've had interesting conversations with, even Darren knows this. They are, in fact, incentivized all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
From the time they take your kids, all the way through.
There's an incentive, but what it comes down to is they have a bunch of these rulings here that they can throw up in your face because of Chevron. And unless you go into a court and say, Your Honor, we need to consider any case here that may be affected by Chevron of what they've done, because it's well known that they are calling themselves specialists. But now you add the evidence we have. They thought they were such specialists that they had a right to violate your constitutional rights with what you printed. Kind of the two don't go together there. There's the whole point. And that's where you see a lot of that is. But we've also found several case laws that come in about constitutional rights. But once again, it comes down to that you're talking about a process or due process, whether or not they have it. You're not attacking from a constitutional right perspective. Once again, that's why your arguments have to be what they are.
Speaking of which, I did some fact finding on what Tiffany had to say, Darren, on the show earlier, and I found this. And I'm gonna read it so you guys can understand. Yeah. And this is something that she was actually correct on, and I double checked it just to make sure that she was correct on it. Let me pull this up. Right here. In the United States, the Bill of Rights does not directly address the filing of a motion in court. However, individuals generally have the right to address the court and present their case, which can include filing motions, and attorneys typically cannot block.
You're basically what it comes down to is your attorney works for you. If you have something you decide you want to submit it, they can advise you, but once again, the ultimate decision is yours.
So I'm going to read to you what I said to Stephen underneath, showing him that. I said, "Who gives you the right to block me? I did not give you that right. So again, Stephen, do not lie to me. I know my rights, and Portland District Court and this DA are in fact violating my rights. So I advise you, stop saying I cannot do things and they are frivolous."
Guys, they've been trained in this system for over 40 years. It's what is known as the good old boy system of saying, well, we've always done it this way. But it doesn't mean that you're following the law. There's a lot of things. That's the beauty of even the Constitution. If we find out that there's things we haven't covered, we have the ability to pass acts or do even a ratification where we take and do something like adding a constitutional amendment, massive things like that. Matter of fact, the previous Congress wanted to do that, to actually, to make some changes, because they were scared of going in there to guarantee themselves some stuff, and that's a very dangerous thing that Congress has. And there's the reality of they have the ability to set their own paycheck too. They decide they want to be millionaires in a year, they can vote on it. And what are you going to do? Where's the people at? And unfortunately, there's some checks and balances, but once again, we have to get away with it.
What's your thoughts, Herbert?
No, Mike.
I gotta unmute him. I muted him because he was making rustling noise.
Oh, he's ruckusing.
Sorry, Herbert. There you go.
What's your thought?
Okay, I'm talking. Can you?
Yeah,
I'm talking.
We got you.
Okay, what I was trying to say when Gunnar was talking earlier, that I concur with Gunnar, that in fact, the year that was put out, there's been a lot of cases that came about since then, and I believe that can be contested. So I don't believe that holds true right now. You said it was 2016 or 2017?
SEC Jersey, I think, was 2023 or 2024.
Right.
So that current case law would actually, if you bring it up in a court, it would overturn it.
So I'm saying that I concur with what Gunnar is saying, that if it's contested in court, it would probably be upheld.
Does
based on what you read, Darren, Darren, to us earlier, I think that any good attorney can override that.
Well, it depends on what Jarsky says in the civil penalties.
And then the individual can have a jury trial. Yes, I believe that.
By the way, Luann Maffei down in the chat is Vinny's mom.
See,
hey, Vinny's mom.
Hey, Vinny's mom. The reason they get away with that is because technically those judges, even for family court or anything else, was to mediate what was supposed to be private contracts, such as your marriage contract that you involve the state with, like when you get divorced. They try to make sure it's applicable. But they ended up finding out it could be profited from. Why? Child support. You have the court now setting a mandate of anything else versus these are my children, and now you've got the state involved with child support. The basis of it is everything is 50-50 down the middle. That includes the children's time, and anything else. And when you split, your assets are your assets, and you walk the opposite way to entice you with more money. Hey, if you don't make enough money or you don't have enough, go on welfare. All these other things, and there's people that are profiting from not doing a damn thing, and I hate to say this, and this is true because it's been on there, 7-10 kids by 7-10 different baby daddies, and getting a fat ass check and not doing a damn thing, and then wondering where the free housing is, and wondering where the free food is, and they got to have money to get their nails done. I'm stuck with these kids all day. How is that the American people's responsibility that you have failed at those things? I mean, if you can't, the idea is, if you can't feed them, don't have kids. I mean, we all run through rough times, and sometimes people need to help, to help each other out, but that's supposed to be your community basis. not from a state basis. And then they say, well, guess what? You're not doing enough good enough job, which is the problem of your constitutional rights. Is I'm not asking for help with CPS. They're forced on us. It's a big difference with intent where you turn around and it comes down to intent. And that's one thing to address when, like what we're going to do is it comes down to intent. Even the case law that says, upon the entry stuff, it comes about intent. My intent was not to do this, but we're forced into this. This is supposed to be something voluntary. It's like if you want to order a pizza from Domino's, order one from Domino's. But there's not another choice of like Papa John's or this pizza or that pizza or that pizza, and you pick what you want. You're not allowed to do that. They come in and stop everything, use their medical experts and this and that, and psychoanalyze you because it's beneficial for their pocketbook. It keeps their people employed. We don't need social workers. We don't, unless they're dealing with something in the court after somebody has committed a crime. If there's no crime, they're creating the crimes, and they're going to the lowest court in the land to go for your conviction for their threshold, and based off hearsay. Why? That person up there has no firsthand knowledge. That investigator has zero firsthand knowledge to bring anything against you or even sit across you. I mean, that CPS worker, they're not in your home. They didn't firsthand see you do this or this or this or that. It's all hearsay. And then they coerce you into stuff, or they use the courts to do it because it makes money. Here, let's tie them up. There's no legitimate. The idea is unless I've, injured somebody personally or their property, the concept for the American citizen is the idea is leave me the fuck alone. Other than that, I don't give a shit. Do you realize how many jobs will be lost in law enforcement and some of those things if they only picked up the phone and dealt with murders like police officers or, the sheriff's deputies are supposed to do? Reactive. They're not. They can prep, train.
Gunner, Lynn said we need. Gunner, Lynn said we need a purge.
We need a what?
A purge.
Purge? No. What we need is to return to the Constitution, like we're supposed to. There's the problem. Look how many. And here's the funny thing. This goes back to the corporation, and I found some things where we've talked about that subject. If you'll notice, I live in a place to where we have areas of land that are listed as kind of like townships or anything like that, that they're unincorporated and it'll have a town. It's not until the state or those towns come in and say, now we're incorporated as this city or town. Well, now you're doing business. Unincorporated areas, they live just fine. They don't have a problem. They live in their homes, and the only jurisdiction that's out there is the sheriff's office, and they don't come out unless it's this or that. Other than that, they leave those people alone. That's the way it's supposed to be. Live in your house, and unless I've hurt somebody or somebody's property,
there is some states like that. I heard.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, I did look into that. There are some states like that they leave people alone. They don't even come in there.
No, because they're unincorporated. They can't touch them. Or as the term is, they live out in the county. As soon as that section of county decides to form its own little thing without an overshadow of government or somebody to rule over them, like the mayors or anything like that, it doesn't matter. Your mayor's supposed to be your county mayor. That's it.
It's kind of like county up north because there's a county up there. They call it potato field. And I tell you what, they don't bug the good old town boys up there.
No, so all we're asking,
they're all
this is the thing, we're regardless of what the circumstances are, the only thing we're asking is to return to the Constitution and follow the Constitution is the only thing that we're asking. That's the only thing any of us here is asking.
But it says clearly that the U.S. in this case right here, it says clearly that the U.S. Constitution does not grant a termination of parental rights to have a jury trial. So it's following the Constitution. So what do we do about that?
Well, once again, Chevron. Does that apply? Is one good question. Number two, what court was that in? Was that in Supreme Court? Was that in a division?
That's the Supreme Court said that.
Okay. So once again, the beauty thing that we can take and turn around, the same argument was made in certain judgments or rulings that made Chevron legal. That's all I'm going to say. That's your decision. But if it's challenged, which it can be, which Chevron was challenged, so was SEC versus Jarsky. So was this. So was that. You've got to go and add current case law. If it's never been overturned, it's legal. It's law.
Yep.
Well,
And if you
depending
have
on where it's from and all of that. That's
Well, if you
not
have-
true. If it's in a different district, it's not
well,
even
through
anything.
the district, yes, but
And they don't even have to go by. It only becomes a practical issue. They don't have to go 100% by what that ruling is.
yeah, and
So
the idea is the constitutionality of, one thing you can't change is constitutionality. If all of them are saying we got a right to come into your house, but the Constitution says that's unconstitutional, they're supposed to follow that. But if they're not following that and getting into your homes and not having a warrant or court order for each entry as required by federal ruling, what makes you think they're going to follow anything else or deal with anything else? All you can do is drain their pocketbooks until they start to behave. We're going to sue the hell out of you and keep suing the hell out of you, and then equip everybody else. But once again, their biggest trick that they do, as soon as somebody figures it out, here, we'll pay you a fat amount of cash and sign this non-disclosure agreement, and now you can't talk about it.
Yep, that's what they're doing to my friend Lisa. They're making her sign a non-disclosure form.
You want this thing? We want a non-disclosure, and you don't have to agree to those. I believe that's a thing against my one. It's against my First Amendment. Second off, I don't negotiate with fucking domestic terrorists, especially when it comes to kidnapping children and obtaining them illegally. Yes, when they violate your Fourth Amendment, they have obtained your children illegally, 100%. And then fruit from the poisonous tree comes in. It don't matter what you've done after that; it gets thrown out. The same in a criminal case, because it applies both criminally and civilly. So there's a lot of things on there that, yeah, they got away with. But there's one thing, too. We need to do a constitutional audit. States need to do a constitutional audit of all their supposed codes, their policies, their procedures, and everything else because of Chevron. But that's going to take an act of Congress. Sorry, to do that. Or you sue them to make the courts to make them compliant. An act of Congress is one thing. But once again, you sue the hell out of them to where it makes it costly. Now you've got Congress's attention. Why? You got people suing them left and right to where Congress needs to step in, because as soon as they find out everybody's suing them, they're going to limit the amount or try to pass a bill to limit the amount you can sue them for. And, as far as under a law. So the idea is get in there and hit them hard till it drains their banks. And if you have so many cases before that's passed, it doesn't matter. My case is already in there.
So what if we went around and we actually, drafted up a petition regarding that, and we brought that petition to Congress, because I know you have to have all the states involved in that.
You know what's going to get Congress's attention is getting the American people's attention by slapping a big fat price tag on what they've done and making it public and revealing it to the public. But once you hearsay, us sitting here talking bullshit is one thing, but file that damn court case and watch how quick you get their attention, because they'll have to answer for it, let alone the accusations you have alone and the evidence. It's enough to be heard. There's the whole point. There's enough to be heard before a judge with the larger case. But the fact that they're doing that, the idea, the concept is, it's not just about the money or the kids. It's the fact that your states are paying state employees and subcontractors to violate and training them to violate your constitutional rights. No way around it. It's treason and sedition, and everybody needs to be held accountable. And they've been doing this to steal children. And it's the only way you're going to do it is shut them down, because every single one of them are guilty of doing it. It cannot be overlooked. Under justice, we have to hold them all accountable, knowingly or unknowingly. And the concept is your ignorance of the law does not negate your responsibility for the crimes of breaking those laws. And a judge will fucking laugh at you when you turn around. I didn't know murder was illegal. It don't fucking matter. You're still going to be tried for murder.
Gunnar, what action can I take tomorrow to adhere to what you're saying? What action can I actually take tomorrow?
While
What do
you're
I
ordering
need to type? What do I need to write up in order to adhere to your guidelines?
to the guidelines, is file your federal case and expose them in court of what they're doing and how you've been a part of it, as well as
So if my
everybody else
case
in
is
the
in,
neighborhood.
so if my case is in state court, I take my
State
case
court
out of
doesn't
state
have
court and
jurisdiction.
then I
You're
file it
talking
in
about
federal court.
constitutional issues. Constitutional issues are never dealt with in state courts, and they will roll and steamroll right past it or ignore it because they don't have jurisdictional matters. So you have to file it in a federal case
So,
under jurisdiction.
okay, so let's make up as a scenario. Let's just put it together. We have a parent or parents, and you make it up. You're gonna give me a particular case that we could take out of state and put it in federal. Make it up.
As
For
far as
example,
state and
start off
federal,
with
a
for
lot of it is
example.
yours. Well, let's put it this way. Has your constitutional rights been violated? Have they entered your home multiple times without a warrant or court order? If they don't,
No,
each
they
entry.
haven't entered. They haven't entered my house without a warrant. They did come to my house. They had a warrant, and I allowed them to come in.
Okay, well, what do we double
As a
check on
result
that?
of them coming in, they said I had dishes piled up in my sink, and my refrigerator didn't seem to have enough food into it, and the refrigerator to feed 4 people.
Okay,
And they
well, one,
decided,
Howard, you're or Herbert, you're getting the cart before the horse. One, how did you obtain that warrant? Because it takes a first person to swear under the penalty of perjury that they have first person knowledge, which is why the federal court ruled that an anonymous call or a hearsay call doesn't verify to even get a warrant or a court order. So, one, how did you get in the
my
house and
neighbor,
say you got a warrant?
my
Is it
neighbor
illegal?
was in my house. My neighbor was in my house, who happens to see and notice that my child's wearing diapers and it was soiled. There was a stench in my house, and they noticed the dishes are piled up, and the child has snot coming out of its nose all the time. It always seemed to be sickly, and they reported me to CPS.
Okay, well, you want to get to the root of the problem, then it would be, do they own the house? Do they rent the house? Because if
No,
the house they're
no,
renting,
I own the house. They're my neighbors. I invited them in my house.
well, okay, well, then they could do under perjury that they thought or they saw or anything else. But once again, that's like somebody saying, I know he has, we'll say, pot in the house. Okay, well, under current regulations with CBD and everything else, how do you know the difference between THCA, B, or C?
No,
Because
no,
one's
there's
legal and
no
stuff.
CBD. There's no drugs. There's nothing around. It's just an observation of my child and the lack of food I have in my house that they went out and they reported that to CPS.
Okay, well,
And they're
one,
willing to
I'd
go on
never
the
let
stand
that
and
name.
witness what they reported.
So, one, if you'd figure out that that was the person, one, I'd never let him in my house and never talk to him again. Number one, it
I
ain't none
don't
of their
plan on letting them in my house or talking to them again. I don't.
Okay.
But on the
So,
other hand, I got a police officer and CPS with a warrant to come in to
say
check
what?
on the check
Not without a
on
warrant, you
the,
ain't getting past my front door.
they have a warrant.
Then I want to know
They
what
have a
first
warrant.
person did it. They have to sign it, and I have to
The
know what
warrant
it is. It's not anonymous.
the warrant states that they want to check on the condition of my child based on Roger, who was at my house 2 weeks ago and reported the information of the conditions of my living conditions.
Okay. Well, then it
So
comes down
based
to
on that,
this.
they want to get a warrant.
How do you know that I was at the end of my week with my groceries and I'm going to the grocery store in the next couple of days? It ain't none of your business. And how I feed my children, if I just feed them beans and rice, that's once again my constitutional right to feed them what I want to feed them. You're not going through my damn cupboards. You're not going through this. You may see, if so, what the fuck you got a neighbor going through and being that damn nosy in your house to go through your cabinets and refrigerators? Once again, you're looking
Well,
at how
my neighbor ended up in my cabinets because we were cooking food and they wanted to know where's the Campbell soup. I told them where it's at, and they observed everything and they went to CPS and they reported me.
so.
Now,
Okay,
I
well
don't plan
then
on seeing that
here's the
neighbor
first
again.
person that you would turn around. At the time he was doing that, I was cooking food. Where's the problem? Your measure of
The
how
neighbor
much
reported
you
to
have in my house
CPS
or
the
not
lack of
your business or CPS's.
the lack of resources, the condition of my house. There
Do
was a
they?
stench in my house, and I reported. No, the neighbor is telling CPS that. So
Well, once
CPS now
again,
comes to my house with a warrant. They
it's
come
none
to
of
my
your
house with a
business.
warrant.
You're telling me that
I'm
you don't
sorry,
have house
Gunner,
repairs?
Gunner.
You
Let's
don't.
go to the warrant part. Well, Gunner, they're at my front door with a warrant saying they would like to come in and do a check on my house.
So I'm going to
So
stop you right there.
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to
let
look
them
on
in.
your warrant. I'm going to use my knowledge. If there's not a proper signature with ink, not a photocopied, it has to be in ink. That warrant is not legitimate. If it doesn't have a seal from the court clerk, it's not a legitimate warrant. So educating yourself
The
on whether or
warrant
not
they
it's a
presented
legitimate
to me
warrant.
had a raised seal because I took my fingers and I ran it across the paper, and it's a raised seal signed by Judge Jackson.
Okay, well, as soon as they come in and it's not found, guess what? That's a lawsuit because you got a warrant to search for something and you didn't find anything. You're out of my damn house.
What CPS came to my house and they found that the conditions of my house wasn't up to par for a child to be in my house.
Okay, well, one, it's a civil matter, not a criminal matter. If the CPS shows up, I mean, we've already addressed that in that case law. One, it has to meet the requirements to even get the warrant. If the warrant was obtained illegally for this or that, but once again, common sense is you have no right to say what my food is or this or that, or I'm going to the store. That's where the lines need to be crossed. You say that, hey, everything's empty. Well, once again, if your neighbor's got enough sense, and here's my problem: your neighbor's got enough sense to call CPS on you. Why the fuck don't he show up with a bag full of $100 groceries to your fucking step and help the fuck out as a community should? There's my fucking problem.
Because the
Yeah.
neighbor
Oh,
has an issue
oh,
with
wait,
me anyway.
that's reversing. That's not being Karen's. That's being a fucking community. See, that
No,
means that person
no.
right there is not part of your community.
God, I don't know where you're going with this. I'm making it as simple as possible. The neighbor just doesn't like me. He happens to come in the house. He reports me to CPS. CPS comes with a warrant. It's a raised seal with Judge Jackson's name signed on the warrant. He's got a
Okay,
police
well,
officer with him. I let them
you're
all in my
talking
house.
once again, you're talking something that you're talking about either a really ignorant person or somebody that is just completely stupid that he's lied off his ass. Because one, if you know that Bob next door don't like you, I sure as fuck am not stupid enough to let him in my fucking house.
I didn't know the guy next door didn't like me until he reported me to CPS.
Well, once again, then I think that somebody ought to talk to somebody about circles and boundaries that you don't let people in your personal domain unless they're your family or utmost trusted people. There's the problem.
Could we
We
move?
have
Can
the
we move
social
on
contract
past
that
all of
anybody
this,
can come in.
Gunner? Gunner, can we move
What?
past this and move on to the warrant, CPS, and now they want to take my children? Let's move to that
How,
level.
how, how
Well,
about
once
how,
again, you're
Well, the
talking
whole discussion
about
was on that. The whole
what?
discussion was based on that. The rulings for the jury trial.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So
So
the bottom line is that I'm trying to show Gunner that they have taken the child out of my house with a
Okay.
warrant and everything else, and I want to go to court and I want to testify and prove in court that I'm a good parent and that I can take care of my children.
Okay.
And
Well,
I'm also
one.
asking to have a jury trial. I'm asking to have a jury trial.
Well, there's a lot of case law that takes and does that because they can't remove a child without a court order, and they can't get a court order without having a hearing where you're present. Those are all established laws. So you're putting the cart before the
Okay.
horse and saying if they have come in with a said warrant and had no hearing and obtained a warrant and everything else through that, that's an issue.
But they have a
That's an
warrant.
issue right
That's
there.
they had a proper warrant. They properly came in, and I properly let them come in.
So here, let me interrupt you two right there for a minute because this is getting a little bit heated here. So I'm going to bring up something that we found today to kind of throw both of you off your beaten path a little bit, okay? Because I sent this to Darren too, so he could investigate into this as well. But according to what we found today, this is in Maine, so this is previous to Maine, okay? This is via foster parents and kingship placement, mind you, okay? It says, avoid taking sides. While kinship caregivers may have personal opinions about the case, they are expected to avoid acting or stating statements that could interfere with the judicial process of CPS work, which means they have to be a neutral party, which means CPS cannot tell them, you have to agree with us.
Yeah, both of them. Yeah, it's an all parties affected thing. Addressing the question to Brenda Cameron, that they didn't need one. Yes, you have a Fourth Amendment violation when they said that they didn't need a warrant to enter. That matter of fact, federal case law is very specific. They absolutely need a court order or warrant or emergency to enter, and it calls any other type of entry coercion, unconstitutional and legal. And that case has never been overturned, and there's no argument that a judge will ever have on the Fourth Amendment. Matter of fact, he even stated that case law for the Fourth Amendment and entries like this was very well established, and then chastised both the cop and the CPS worker because they should have known better and been trained better. They're doing, listen, evil, conniving people will train people to do what they want, and they'll never do it themselves. They will hire people that they can fool, train, scare the shit out of, which is why most of your things, when you go through their training pack, even my wife went through, they have things like Darkness into Light and a couple of these other movies, and it's a scare tactic. Oh my God, is this possibly happening in my home? Is this happening? They're making you second guess yourself. They're tainting a witness. They shouldn't even be interacting other than collecting evidence, but instead they're showing you movies. They're going through programs. They're going through it. That's called a tainted fucking witness. That's called witness tampering. The idea is where you're at, what you are of your own free will and mind, using your own brain. What do you think? And the court stands behind that. But once again, because they get away with it, because of lower income people has less information and knowledge, and they're not given that, nor are you ever trained, even in some of the others, to do it, which is why they hate homeschoolers. Homeschoolers treat or actually teach their children, and they hated their constitutional rights, especially religious organizations. I guarantee you they're teaching that First Amendment flag hardcore. It's my religious right and belief, and I have a whole church of people to back it up. You got a problem because they'll walk away hard. Why? Because a lot of religious organizations do have federal protection, and they will step in for churches when states and governments interfere with churches hardcore. They have their own division for that. And trust me, they are well funded with some really, really good lawyers. And the first thing they file, First Amendment violation, Your Honor. We're not hurting anybody. We ain't hurting nobody's property. Okay, everybody's doing everything voluntary, even in the snake handling churches. Uh-oh. So yeah, the same thing applies. But once again, they're writing their own rules, their policies, procedures that are directly against the Constitution is what it comes down to. I don't need you to force your services on me. It's voluntary. I didn't call you. If it's a criminal matter, then the lead investigator should be your sheriff's deputy or your county investigating it. Cities don't have the right to prosecute you for anything, for no murder charge. That's your county has to do it. So all those different things that are funny, city police or whatever may investigate it, but it turns over to the prosecutor. They can collect the evidence, but they can't. The city can't come after you. You're going to county court, which is why they tell you. Hey,
So let me ask you this question, Gunner. In a situation where a child has been brought to the hospital or a clinic on a couple of occasions, which showed bruises on a child that the doctors suspect maybe the child was being abused by somebody, and that doctor calls as a mandatory reporter, calls the CPS to investigate. How should that be handled, or how should that not be handled?
Well, once again, the doctors only see him one time. It's your general practitioner. Your general practitioner, you're seeing a specialist. There are even conditions where they have removed children for this. Come to find out, they have a rare genetic disease, and we're illegally taking every single time. Once again,
in this case, it's not a rare. This is not a rare genetic disease. This kid accidentally fell down a staircase. And the
That's it.
parents brought it to the hospital, to the
Okay.
emergency room.
Yeah.
Kids
Okay.
fall down
So
all the
the
time.
Kids
emergency room
happen. Kids trip.
asks
Kids
questions,
shit.
and they just feel something's not right with the way I'm responding to them, and they call in CPS.
Well, once again, it's none of your fucking business, is what it comes
So
down
can I?
to. Why? Because kids, whether you like, hold on, Herbert, let me finish. Because when we were kids, we didn't have helmets. We didn't have this. We didn't have that. And those are preventative things. Doesn't mean I'm not going to scrape my elbow. It
Well,
doesn't
you don't
mean
wear
I'm
a
not going
helmet
to
for
do
your
this and that.
elbow.
It doesn't mean I'm not going to beat a fucking
Hey, Lady
kid.
B.
You know, I mean, we got knee pads, we got elbow pads. Hell, they got whole body pads you could put your kids in. But man, we didn't have that stuff, and we still
Well, we had
survived.
it. We just didn't use it.
You're going to get boobs. You're going to the idea of putting a child in a fucking bubble does not work for raising fucking children, and it has been proven. You need those things for you to grow. You need those adversaries. You need those things to overcome to become an adult and a developed part of society to get your nicks and bruises. You don't believe me? Why do you take and you turn your nose up with most people, with people that are exceptionally rich, that's never fucking lifted a hand to do any physical labor their entire life most of the time, or a silver spoon in their mouth? They have no clue. There's a complete
Right.
disconnect. But now you've got people that are doing this, that are rich or don't have those type of parents, are not raised in that environment, going into lower income areas and going, oh God, this is disgusting. I wouldn't live like this. Why? Because you were raised like that. And they're bringing that prejudice in there. That's like me coming into your house, Howard, and going, I don't like the way that you decorate this or the smells in your house and anything else. I don't feel it's clean enough. You smell that smell and all those covered up perfumes. I feel those are chemicals, and you're hurting the children. If I'm one of the newer age people of saying, hey, all that food you're giving your children is poison. It's got red dye 40 and everything else. That's my opinion. But I can argue that in a court to say you're poisoning your children.
Nick,
But I'm feeding them with what they're being told that we can have according to, the farmers and the FDA and everything. And this is all legal stuff, but according to their opinion, yeah, but it's causing your child to be hyperactive, or it's causing this, or it's causing that. It's not about getting the truth and the answers or being better. Why? Because it would expose a whole industry,
Nick,
because they make money off of this stuff. Hospitals make money off this stuff. These socialist organizations make money off this stuff. I mean, it's an everything to generate stuff for big pharma. Why? Go through this with a family, and all of a sudden somebody has a heart condition like me. Now you're going to accelerate that with a massive amount of stress. And I'm not the only person that has had heart issues because of CPS, almost killing people. But they don't care. There's no ADA for anything like that. They don't ask you what you got pre-existing conditions, but in a way, it's a form of premeditated murder or attempted murder. You're trying to kill people for
may I
what?
go back?
You had no
May I
fucking
go back to my hospital situation for your answer? So they're telling me I have to stay there. They patch up my kid, and they say, well, you have to stay because we have personnel coming from CPS that wants to talk to you. Can I say screw you and your CPS and walk out the door?
Absolutely. You have the right to check yourself out or your children because you have control of
And,
your children at absolutely time and refuse medical
and I'm
treatment.
saying that
Medical treatment
I'm
cannot be
saying that
forced on you. Matter of
I'm
fact, there's
refusing
on that.
I'm refusing medical treatment for my child, and I want to leave.
You're right. I want to use alternative medicine instead of this particular medicine. I have a right because that's part of my heritage or my belief system. That would be a First Amendment violation. Absolutely. I don't have to take modern medicine if I believe it's against my religion.
The medicine
You
they
would have
want
to
to
get a
do,
court order
the
for that.
medicine they want to do is to put a brace on my child's wrist because it got sprained from falling down the staircase.
You can do that yourself at home.
And I'm going to say that I could do this.
Well,
I could do this myself at home. That's correct. I agree with you on that. And I take the child and I go home. Within 2 weeks, I get a knock, knock, knock at the door. It's CPS.
listen,
They
that's
want
like
to see
turning
how my
around. Let me
child's
put to you
doing.
this way,
I will
Howard.
say to them, you can't enter unless you have a warrant. I'm not letting you see my child or come in my house unless you have a warrant. Am I
I'm taking them out, and any
on the
person that
right track?
stands in your way trying to hurt your child, you can leave.
Am I on the right track, Saw Gunner? They're not coming in unless they have a warrant.
The idea is anything to do with it. That's just like taking your blood test at the hospital or anything else. It's illegal seizure under the Fourth Amendment. It has to have your permission. Anything else is coercion.
Am I
It's
doing
illegal.
am I doing
Forcing you
okay
to do
by
those
saying
things.
am I doing okay by saying no? I'm not letting you in because you don't have a warrant. Am I good so far?
Well, a warrant in a hospital, once again, it depends on what your
No,
hospital is listed
no,
at.
I
If the
walked
state
out.
owns it, it's considered public
I
property.
walked out of the hospital and I did what Vinny told me to do. I put my own splint on my child's wrist when I got home. I don't want any medical attention for my child. But within 2 weeks, CPS comes knocking at my door, and I said, "Do you have a warrant?" They say no.
Hey,
Well, then you
gentlemen,
can't come in.
Well, once
gentlemen,
yes, that's
gentlemen,
correct.
we're at
Time.
that
Yeah,
time.
we're at time.
Last
All
word.
right.
Herbert.
Last words is don't let CPS in your house unless they have a warrant. And this warrant should be signed and possibly stamped or sealed, like Gunner would say. And that's the only way you let them in. Other than that, don't let them in. And be careful with your neighbors that you invite in your house. Or family
Careful
members
with
for that
anybody you want in
matter,
your house.
because family members will turn you in. Family members will turn on another family member quicker than you blink your eye.
You can blink your eye
You're
fast.
misinterpreting what I'm saying, and I'll tell you what. I'll do this for you, Howard.
Who's
Here in the
Howard?
next couple
Who
shows, we
is
will
Howard?
actually.
Who's Howard?
I'm sorry, Herbert. Sorry, Herbert. Different age reminds me of somebody else. I apologize.
You don't have
So
anybody
listen,
else that
guys,
looks
we'll
like
actually.
Herbert around you. Come on.
Actually, I had a guy I grew up with that was in Chicago. Yeah, matter of fact, it was the guy that marched with the civil rights with Martin Luther King. He looks a lot like him. So yeah, it happens to slip. So that's a good thing, Herbert. You remind me of somebody that did something that was positive for his community. But guys, a lot of this, I'll do a special. I'll tell you what. If you guys tune into our show, Gunning for CPS, we will actually do a special show called Circles, and it explains what circles and circles of trust are and how you should take and be teaching yourself and your kids who to let into your inner parts of your life and who to filter out and where to be careful and how to filter these people and actually go
When are
through
we gonna
those
do that,
things.
guy?
This is a very important thing, and exactly what Herbert said is exactly true. Sometimes just because they're blood doesn't mean you can trust them. That's the whole point of this circles exercise of putting them to the test. You don't belong in circle one of my inner circle of my family and everything else to know my intimate details. And you got to understand that of that circle, you're talking about somebody that should be at circle 3 or 4. If they've come to 2 to where they're in your home, you better really trust them. And we have to analyze people like that. That whole thing of being friendly and neighborly and all that, that's great. We'll sit in common areas and we'll go out in my front yard or my backyard or this, that. But as far as coming into my home, you guys need to understand that home is your castle and you're not protecting it properly if you're inviting anybody and everybody in your home. You got to remember that. That's why it's so important. That's why the first thing some of the cops and you'll understand that too, Herbert. That's called a lot of traffic when you have a bunch of people coming in and out of your house. That's called traffic, and then they start watching you because they think you're doing illegal activity. It's one of the things that they mark is watching for traffic.
What are you going to do that?
So guys, know your
I agree with you on that one, Will. The government should butt out of the family and the schools. Agreed.
Gunner, what are you thinking about that? Circles.
Well, we're just getting started with the show. We're going to do some of that. So I'm thinking maybe not this Sunday, but the Sunday after. We're going to do a show specifically on circles. This is something that my wife and I have actually put together. And it's just a brief thing of who you come in and the psychological aspects of it, how to protect your family of who to let in and who not. Just because they're family, don't tolerate their type of attitude in your home because you're right. Herbert, those family members could turn on you and report you, especially if you don't trust them, whether they're family or not. Just it's okay to say, and you have every right. I don't feel comfortable with you being in my home. We can meet in a public place. You don't have to be in my home. I don't want you in my home. I don't trust you in my home. I don't trust you around my kids. And then they'll come, well, we're family. That's exactly how some of the abuse cycles happen. This is what's part of the circle practice actually will teach you is it helps prevent your family from having a lot of people coming into your life and into your home and destroying your peace that's actually in your home. So it's an excellent lesson. I encourage you all to catch it. We're going to do that probably not
Following
this Sunday, but the following
Yep.
Sunday on with Gunning for CPS at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Guys, check that out. You'll learn a whole lot. We look forward to seeing you there. And those are our last
Vinny,
words.
Gonna have a
last
question
words,
for you.
buddy.
Before we go to Vinny, gonna have a question for you. When will your wife finish her segment on stress
Hey,
of the
guys,
parents and
last
stress of the
words,
children?
last words is last words. Last words is last words.
I didn't bring up
Once we say,
Gunner.
We'll
once we
discuss
say last
that.
words, we cut it down.
Herbert.
Right, Vinny?
That's right.
We'll deal with that in private chat or somewhere some other time. We'll address it, and that'll be on the schedule.
Last
We'll
words.
announce
Vinny,
it when
you're
it's
up,
time.
buddy.
All right. My last words for all of you parents out there watching. Don't give up hope, even though what we heard, fathers that are listening and watching, you're not out of the fight yet. As long as you don't have a TPR in front of you and you're not TPR'd, you still might be able to fight that. There are loopholes within the system. You have to look for them. You have to find them. You have to research them. You have to know what you're looking for. So just keep in mind, we're in this all together, and we're fighting for our children, all states wide and international wide as well.
Hell yeah. I'm going to go off of what Vinny just said a little bit there, and I'm going to say, you know what? Even if you are TPR'd, don't ever keep your head down because there's people fighting for you in that fight. People like me, there's a lot of us out there, and we're going to beat this thing. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And, even though all of us here in the past few days get a little spicy with each other, we're all on the same team still. And we all know that. We're doing it so that you guys don't have to. So just make sure you guys pack it up. Make sure you take care of people around you that need to be taken care of. And if you're getting a little crazy in the head and you're thinking about hurting yourself, make sure you call 988 because your kids need to be, you need to be around for your kids when they do come home eventually. So that being said, I'm the CPS Punisher. Don't forget tomorrow morning, Brenda's show is on. 9:30 starts there, so make sure you check her out. Brenda's her own thing, man. Brenda's something else. So make sure you guys check her out tomorrow morning at 9:30. I'm the CPS Punisher, and we are out of here. Have a good night, everybody.
The world getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate, separate and segregate. Don't celebrate quite yet, the storm is coming, Q, for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate. The values of our country and our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight, pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate, and then we liberate. Praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on these streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour and troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpents.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on, but chose to just neglect it. Deflected by some breaking news, oh, we just accept it. Expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objective, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed, lion not a sheep. Only kneel to my God, so I'm dying stand on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches, I can't take it on the cheap. Drink from a glass half full, I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome opposition, or I'm gonna start resisting and then I'll pray for forgiveness.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you now. We need you now. One day, one day, one day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
Imagine being a child who has been torn away from their security blanket, their parents, the ones who stopped the boogeyman from terrorizing the nights and curing their boo-boos when they scrape their knees. Now just imagine how they must feel when the CPS meant to protect them tears them away from their supposed abusers and places them with strangers who have zero comforting skills. They need to be calmed. They are confused, lost, panicked, and needing their parents, but CPS took them away for the purpose of saving them. The kids don't even know why, and they are told that the parents they attach to no longer want them. What do you think that does? Do you think that this is how protecting children is supposed to look? Abolish CPS.